see the remake, or the one from the 70s, and see Kevin McCarthy, the star, like I said, running through the streets of San Francisco getting hit. If you had seen this film before on television in the past, you may have noticed a change that you hadn't noticed. This indeed was the original theatrical release that we saw. It differs from what is shown on television. There are an additional 4 minutes in this film. They are the prologue and the epilogue. Was created after the film had been finished. Allied Artists was afraid that it was too terrifying to end it with just the shot of Kevin McCarthy running in the street with the traffic, that it needed more of a resolution. And indeed, there's a bit of hope in this. Other people believe him. They're able to get the FBI on the phone. Okay, so it seems like everything's going to be taken care of.
A lot more upbeat than the 70s one.
A lot more upbeat.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But the 70s one is choices.
Yeah.
Especially the scream that they make.
Right at the end.
Yeah. I encourage you to check that one out. But I mean, I know, we've seen a lot more terrifying things than this, but I think it's interesting to put ourselves back in that time period, that this was so terrifying that they actually had to add on, that little opening scene and the closing scene to make the audiences feel more assured. You may have noticed too, in the opening credits it said Super Scope. This too was part of that widescreen format. First thing that we've had in this class so far, we had letterbox. Everything else we've been seeing has been full screen, so now the aspect ratio has changed. The picture is getting considerably wider. Those of you with a sharp eye, you may have noticed his name on the opening credits, and indeed it was him, Sam Peckinpah, one of America's greatest directors, a man with a penchant for violence, who gave us The Wild Bunch, Straw Dogs, you name it. He was the gas man. That they called down to, how's it going? I'm just here delivering the gas, and he's also there at the very end telling him, oh, don't worry about it, no one's going to believe him. Indeed, that is Sam Peckinpah making a cameo appearance. It's interesting, there was a tribute in 1980 at USC for Don Siegel, the director, and he actually singled out of all of his films, Invasion of the Body Snatcher as his personal favorite movie of everything that he's made. And he said the reason for that was because, quote, it's a film about something, and that's very rare. He claimed that he was always aware of the symbolic meaning of his movie. He says, there are pods, not vegetables from outer space as in my movie, but real people. Many of my associates are pods. People who have no feeling of love or emotion, who simply exist, breathe, and sleep. So maybe not perhaps the communist allegory that we were thinking, but definitely he had in mind people that were not fully participating.
Well, even in the movie, they're locked into the doctor's office, and he does say there are people, as I've seen many people, it can happen slowly, not all at once, but people harden their hearts. He even says that, sort of bringing the theme home, as it were.
Yeah. Could it just be the natural hardening of the human heart, or could they be aliens coming in? But yeah. Did you guys have fun?
Yeah, it was cool.
Okay, I thought there was some nice things. I like Don Siegel. He has never been that incredible a director, but I think he's always consistent, always delivering solid work. We had something else new in this film. I don't know if any of you caught it. What is known as a Dutch angle. Basically, a Dutch angle, really the favorite of the British director Carol Reed. It is, instead of shooting straight on, everything even in parallel, you just kind of whack your camera at a 40-degree angle, so it has this weird tilt to it. It's used to make us feel a little disconcerted. A normal shot suddenly presented at that angle kind of tips you off that there's something wrong. Where did we see that shot?
Was it
when he was like stabbing his own?
Yes, the beginning of that whole sequence. The first shot of him going into the greenhouse is a Dutch angle.
Yeah.
Everything else after that is even, but that very first shot lets us know, hey, wait a minute, there's something in that greenhouse.
Yeah.
Besides the regular plants we're used to.
I wanted to say I watched the second or the remake of this film, and I have been so captivated with it since I've seen it. I'm not a horror film person until more recently, until you've introduced me to horror. And when I watched that film, and in fact, recently I've been thinking a lot about it, so I was intrigued when you said that we were going to watch it. That's the one I thought that we were going to watch.
Oh,
But
the
I'm
70s
really
one,
glad that we watched this one. But this theme for me is much more than metaphorical. And I've referred to this in the past in different classes and when we've watched different films. And for me, it makes me think, and in fact, I want to write about this for my final, but I process these thoughts constantly, and so I'll try to articulate it here and then re-articulate it, or even in more depth, I hope, for my final paper. But one of the things that I believe from my Nichiren Buddhist practice is that we live in the prison system world. In Nichiren Buddhism, we have been basically banished to live in this world as a prison for our past offenses against life itself by degrading life. And so as part of the prison system world, in the Lotus Sutra also says that it's the burning house. And the people in the burning house don't believe they're in the burning house. But there are some people who are becoming aware that they're in the burning house, and they say, "You're in the burning house, you have to get out." And in fact, the Buddha was the one who was that person who knew. And the people, his children, didn't realize it. So he uses expedient means to get them to leave the burning house. But same with the prison system world, it's just a different metaphor. But for me, my point of this is that, and what's really intriguing is that the prison system world is ruled by the devil king of the sixth heaven, or Mara, or also known as, his name is he who freely enjoys things conjured by others. And if he's the ruler of this prison system world, you can see how when we're born into the world, maybe considered innocent or naive, which is how most people view newborns, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody, but most people do. Right. But over time, we learn things like violence, hate, racism, and we're also taught, I believe overtly and subvertly, every way possible, that there is no love. And that if we love other people, we will be abandoned, betrayed, hurt, abused, disappointed in the end. And so one of the things that Darren and I talk about a lot is dismantling that belief. First of all, recognizing it in ourselves. To me, the idea that another person is possessed by this fundamental darkness is terrifying. But the most terrifying is when we recognize it in ourselves. It's like when he starts to see that this is going to happen to him, that potential is getting closer and closer. And so it's like dismantling that belief that there is no love, that we can't trust one another. And what's interesting is the second film totally reinforces that you cannot escape the prison system world. You will never escape. This first one has that hope, though.
A ray of hope, yeah.
And it reminds me of those zombie movies that I'm really captivated with, and Soylent Green that I'm really captivated with, because for me, it's only slightly metaphorical. It's very, very literal.
I love your take on it.
Oh,
And, backing
you.
that up, you have those lines where, what is it, the psychiatrist and his friend, Jack, say, they start saying, well, you've been hurt in love.
Right.
Before, why is
Yeah.
that something that you want to hang on to?
Yeah.
And you're right, and it's all about,
Right.
just, I guess, deadening those emotions, eliminating them completely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of, this is me coming from 2014, looking back at this film.
Mhm.
It seemed to be a lot lighter than its remakes, even without the prologue and the epilogue. Like, I don't know, I don't know how to word it, really. But there seemed to be like, the final sequence of "you're next," I would think would scare some people straight. But I don't know. I don't know how to word it.
Maybe, is this helping any? Maybe our level of horror or what we've been exposed to over the years is so much greater that
Yeah,
That when we go back to the earlier films, they don't seem to have the same impact that a more modern movie would have.
yeah.
Yeah. It was a gentler time back then. I mean, I always think back, I mean, we didn't have our first, mass murder until the late 1950s in cold blood. We didn't have serial killers until the 1960s. So this was an innocent world, I mean, by those standards. We hadn't...
serial killers.
Hmm?
Serial killers.
Ed Gein, yeah.
Jack the Ripper.
Yeah, but that's over in Great Britain too. We got a whole pond in between. I'm just thinking here on.
We didn't hear about it
Because it wasn't advertised, right?
Yeah, it wasn't, not every little story was advertised on TV or
Read the
put on
headlines.
the news, and so they didn't want to freak everybody out. Now it's like,
Well, now they start taking back. Now they're actually saying our first serial killer came in 1898. Harry Mudgett at the Chicago World Fair. That he opened up his own hotel and
I
probably
love talking about it now.
got rid of a couple hundred people in acid baths and things like that.
Was it H.H. Holmes?
Yes,
The doctor?
yes. Also known as Harry Mudgett. Yeah, Darren.
We were talking about the Red Scare and how
Mhm.
this, at the time especially, it might have been hard to see parallels between that and say, is this about communism? Though, yeah, from what the director is telling us, no, it wasn't, at least in his mind, specifically about that. It's about people that surround him. It's about, like Jody said, this is not metaphorical, except maybe that much. More than that, it's a reflection of the world, reality.
Yeah, that's what he seems to be indicating, that he knows people like
Sure.
this.
Actually-
So,
It seems like a commentary about, sorry.
Sorry, hang on, Rico. Darren, finish that thought.
I was just thinking in that sense, it makes this a more timeless story. And we were talking about, what did you say? It reminded you of something.
Soylent Green.
Oh, yeah, and a couple others.
And zombie films,
And then I
Night of
was,
the Living Dead.
as we were watching it, thinking The Matrix.
Right.
And you've got
yeah.
Agent Smith going around turning everybody into Agent Smith, everybody that he touches. And
And the whole stay asleep
it,
or wake up, Are you,
yes,
Are you
exactly.
going to buy
This
into the
is
dream?
totally something that we've been talking about lately. Is to what degree are these things metaphorical at all? And I'll be brief. Funny story though. Jody knows this story. There was this period of several days a few years ago when I stayed up for like 4 days on a drinking binge watching Matrix films back to back to back to
Oh my
back
God.
for like 3 days.
And you lived.
But yeah, it got dicey there because by the fourth day, I was genuinely convinced that the Matrix is not metaphorical at all, and we are in the Matrix. And I started telling people, "You're an agent. I know you're an agent." And they'd be like, "Not an agent." And I'd be like, "That's what all the agents say." I think I almost got my ass kicked by a couple of people over that, but it was scary because who's to say? It really gets you looking around and say, and watch next week. Liam will come to class. It'll be just a little different.
Yeah.
than it was last
The sparkle in the eye. Fine class. Anyone want to recommend
And he'll
this
say,
film?
I love George Lucas films like Star
Oh,
Wars.
God. Then you know something's wrong. Then you got to drive a stake through my heart. I mean,
A
any cross and
We'll find a
everything.
pitchfork. Yeah. I don't know. This stuff, it's really close to home in some really uncomfortable ways, which is what makes it a horror movie to me. But it was cool. It was a treat. Thank
Very
you.
cool.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's like my piece.
Rico, what were you going to add?
It seemed like a commentary on the 50s almost. Because before we were talking about how the 50s was kind of an idyllic time,
Yeah.
everything was perfect.
Conformity, kind of.
Conformity, and that's pretty much what the aliens sort of wanted. They wanted conformity, everyone was the same, no complexness, no more hardships of life. You didn't have to deal with things anymore because everything was perfect.
Yep.
And that was pretty much the 50s. That was how the 50s wanted to be. And that was actually something that just hit me.
And backing that up, Rico, backing up what you're saying, again, I'll quote from that article that I posted for you guys. Emmanuel Levy, he said that most of the films from the 50s dealt with 3 issues. speaking about this whole conformity thing and the ideal life. The first one was the definition of what is normal and what is abnormal behavior, okay? Secondly, who has the power? Who are the authorities that decides what is normal and abnormal
You know,
behavior? And then
people say
three, the negative effects of conformity and complacency. So again, just speaking out against that. And I always like to throw out, remind people that the 1950s, we always think about the happy housewives, that are, running the family and everything's perfect. Did you know that methamphetamine was the most common drug used in the 1950s?
When they said, here, this will make
I
you
thought
stay
Exactly, exactly. Do you know that most housewives were taking uppers? That was the DOC, the drug of choice in the 1950s. We think it's new with Breaking
Upper,
Bad.
you said?
Pardon me?
Upper?
Uppers, yeah, methamphetamines.
That's, oh.
It was a nice carryover from the war. It was the Nazis who invented it, and then it kind of came over to our shores. So always keep that in mind too. What are the popular drugs that are ruling your society at the time?
I think that was another theme because, he's always giving people something to like calm them down.
I wondered if they were going to tell us what the name of the pill
Yeah.
was,
But yeah, every time somebody's like freaking out or something, he wants something, it's always take this, it'll calm you down.
Well, he's a doctor. He's coming
He's a
from
doctor,
what
yeah.
he knows, But then, I think he's pretty open-minded. He lets go of it quickly and buys into the thing. But I always think that's fascinating. Those of you who've seen The Exorcist, the version you've never seen on its re-release, where they recut it
Yeah.
and they put in the new scenes. I always crack up when the doctor says to Ellen Burstyn, says, "We'd like to give your daughter a new pill. It's experimental. It's something called Ritalin." Yeah, that's going to stop her. But back then, it was a brand new drug. It was, a new wonder drug with all these, properties to it. Maybe it would drive the devil out of her. Who knows? Yeah, Darren.
I'm sorry, I have to say one more thing sort of along the lines of what I was saying, because I feel like I'm not done. As a caution, I want to draw attention to a cautionary aspect of it. We were talking about two different movies. I'm guessing most people have seen The Matrix.
Most people have seen The Matrix?
Okay.
Yeah.
Seen it all the way through.
What's that?
I haven't seen it all the way through.
Okay,
But
maybe
everybody says it's great.
it's pretty cool. I think I don't know. You might like it. I would recommend it. I don't know if you would like it, but I hope so. To qualify everything.
No, you don't.
Okay. Well, I drew the parallels, and a difference here is that in Invasion of Body Snatchers, you have this something that starts small and begins to spread, and it's about people being taken over, the process of that happening. So your idyllic world is threatened by this, we'll use seed for lack of a better word, since they're using seed pods and it's spreading. Whereas in the Matrix, it's already spread to everywhere, and it's the very few people who aren't trying to escape the spread. They're already under its siege, and they're trying to get out. And from a Buddhist perspective, the Matrix is more accurate to what we're already living. So I'm just presenting it because I noticed that difference, and it invites people to decide what is the truth of this world. Is it the idyllic world, or is it in fact the world that's already been taken over by the body snatchers, and you have to get out because it's too late to stop its spread. It's everywhere. I don't know, do with that what you will. I'll do the same. I haven't.
Well, I'm thinking about the Buddhist belief in the illusory nature of our reality, and
Yeah.
that feeds
Right.
perfectly into that. Have we already
Yeah.
bought into the illusion?
Right.
You know, do we accept that illusion as the truth?
Or the illusion existed before we even came into it. It was already in place.
Yeah, exactly. You thought it was just a film class, didn't you? No, it's theology, metaphysics, and all kinds of
Philosophy,
plates
yeah.
here in film.
Yeah.
Next week, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be turning you on to what I think is one of the most beautiful movies ever made, certainly on my top 10. The film Wild Strawberries by Ingmar Bergman. Have any of you seen Wild Strawberries?
No.
Jody, you're the only one. Oh my God. You guys are in for a wonderful, wonderful treat. An older gentleman, he's going to be recognized with a lifetime achievement career. He's a doctor. He takes a drive up the Swedish coastline to accept the award, and along the way, he has a series of dreams. He pulls over in dreams, and basically reflecting on the life that he's lived to see if it really is as full as everyone else thinks it is, and the award that he's about to get. Just absolutely gorgeous. The dream sequences are amazing. The humanity in the film is just overpowering. I think you guys are in for a real treat. Plus, we even have a chapter in our textbook, if anyone has it, that is devoted to symbolism in cinema, and it's basically talking about Ingmar Bergman. So I thought those of you who are following along in the text will have Wild Strawberries, which is, so choice. Until then, I want you all to have an absolutely wonderful Halloween. I want you to get lots of candy. I want you to be absolutely safe, because I want to see everyone back here next week, okay? So have a blast, but be careful out there.
What's on the reel next week?
It's Wild Strawberries, brother.
I'm sorry.
And there's some spooky elements to it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, we'll keep that Halloween theme going.
We're gonna be looking for Halloween 3, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, Halloween
It's-
3!
I thought of
Oh
that.
my God, I can't
Oh.
believe you guys haven't seen it.
Uh,
Halloween, have you seen it, Sage? Yes!
Yeah.
The man knows of which I speak. Thank
It's
you.
like one of the funniest ones. It's so out of place in the series.
Completely out of place.
It's so funny at the same time.
Thank you,
It's
brother.
like so well, like toned.
I'm sure
I love your
I've seen
endorsement.
it.
Oh, I'm not alone. It's always nice to have that reassurance.
And actually, the way that you described that connected with all of this conversation we've had today surrounding this film for me. It's like the children put on these masks and then they take on all those characteristics. It's similar. See, the theme is recurring
Yes.
over and over in our cinema, from Peter Greenaway to all of these horror films, to Soylent Green, to science fiction, to it's a recurring theme. It just plays out in kind of somewhat different tellings.
Have a good week, Marcy.
So that's why I'm so intrigued by it. Like, one of the things, if you don't mind me saying, that I thought of this when you said we were going to be watching Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yeah.
I've thought of this recently with regards to the censorship question,
Yeah.
as well as, all of the other questions that we deal with in this class and in life. And I remembered when I was in second grade, at home in the evening, I walked out into the living area of the place where my family and I were living, and my mother and my brothers were watching the movie of that time, the version of that time of Ben with the rats.
Oh, yeah.
And I came out and I saw the main character or somebody being eaten alive by rats. And that was kind of a common experience in my childhood, walking in on these
The most
horrific,
horrifying moments?
traumatizing scenes.
It was probably
But-
Ernest Borgnine, which is even more horrifying.
Oh, I love Ernest Borgnine, but anyway, so I thought of that recently, and I thought, well, in a world where it's not a prison system world, we're not even going to make movies like that.
See,
Does that connect with something in your?
yeah, absolutely.
Thinking?
I mean, because I've often wondered that too. I mean, it's so ironic in as much as, you know, I always come back to that great line in Wings of Desire, where the old man, the storyteller, as he's walking around, he says, you know, why is it that all these epics can be written about war, and yet no one has written an epic about peace or about love?
Right.
I've been thinking about that
You know,
from time
and-
to time, that quote, yeah.
Yeah, and then all those of us who have taken writing courses were always told that it's all about conflict.
Right.
Does it always have to be about conflict? Or
No, conflict's not the best word for it. I once heard that the best, I guess tension is a part of it.
yeah,
The best drama is when the audience knows something that the characters do not. And with that, I shall leave you to a more.
Bye, Rico.
Oh,
Have a
you're
good
getting
one.
out of that too easy, Rico.
Yeah.
Have a happy Halloween. All right, drops a nugget at our feet and
Yes,
walks
and then
away.
he's-
What is that?
Very unfair.
Kind of unnerving, really. I get the
Yeah.
feeling like he's actually the person writing the screenplay of our lives.
Yeah, he
God
just
has
came in
left the
and
room,
he was
Yeah.
watching and seeing how we're doing.
Who's
He's
imagined-
gonna go back and
Like,
God had
rewrite
pleasure
some
for us.
lines.
He's,
Yeah.
he's the audience that knows something that we don't.
We don't.
Oh, it's creeping me out.
Before you leave, can you at least
Yeah.
give us a hug?
You are God.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He was back there on his laptop, so we've got to figure it out, you guys, to know what's
He's
up.
writing these scenes as they unfold.
I just saw a really strange movie about that. One of my
Really?
students brought it in for the ethics class. I'm not recommending this film at all. I thought it was
Okay.
terrible. It's called Ruby Sparks.
Uh-huh.
Paul Dano.
You seen it?
No.
And an actress named Zoe Kazan, and she also wrote the screenplay. And I guess she and Paul Dano are lovers in real life. And he's a struggling writer who one day the female character he's writing about comes to life and like moves in with him. And whenever she's not acting the way he wants her to act, he can just change it by typing on the typewriter.
Wow,
Yeah, it's a really,
very interesting,
it's
but
not.
it's not
It's
interesting?
not, it's horrible, and it's supposed to be, I guess, like a condemnation of abusive relationships, but it doesn't come off that way at all, because you end up having more sympathy for the screenwriter.
Yeah.
The irony is that it's written by a woman and co-directed by a woman, the same team that did Little Miss Sunshine,
Yeah,
and yet all the reviews that you find on it are labeling the film misogynistic.
wow.
It's a total mess.
Wow.
It's a total mess
Wow.
Yeah.
And you're teaching that ethics course at,
at the university. Yeah.
are you teaching that class every semester?
I have been now,
Oh,
yeah.
I'm very intrigued with that class. And
I wish, I'm still trying to find the right parameters to it without
Yeah.
censoring anybody.
Right.
It's just that sometimes they don't necessarily bring in necessarily appropriate films.
Right.
This one was kind of questionable.
Oh, okay.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
sure, there was questions within the narrative, but I want things that are more ethically questionable in terms of the bigger picture, and not just a dilemma that a character is facing within a story.
Yeah.
And like, so for examples like that, I might say, well, like the movie Death Wish,
Uh-huh.
you know? It's kind of advocating the need for personal revenge, and that it's all right to
Right.
take the law into your own hand. He's let off completely scot-free at the end of the movie. He's hailed as the vigilante
Right.
hero, and is given a free
Right.
plane ticket to Arizona. You know, take your
Right.
revenge out west, brother, where it belongs, but not here in New York. You know, and in films like that, you know, a few years later, you have that incident with Bernie Getz on the subway in New York.
Right.
Called him the vigilante killer. So films like that are the ones that I would prefer coming in. I mean, that's a really profound ethical thing. You know, do we take the law into our own hands? Do we? And then some of them are just like, they just stop like on the screen. They don't go
Yeah.
beyond it. Do you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
right.
What was the connection between Ruby Sparks and the ethics class? Was that the connection that somebody?
Somebody brought it in because they thought that was it ethical for him to control the woman, you know, like that.
Right.
But that is a complete fiction. I mean, that doesn't happen in real life anyway.
You mean
give me a
the
real story about an abusive relationship,
Uh-huh.
you know, and that I can
Right.
deal with. I mean, that would have more meat to it.
Right.
Like recently, I went and I rewatched New York, New York. Did we talk about this? The
Uh-uh.
Martin Scorsese musical with Robert De Niro and Liza Minnelli. I hated it when it first came out. It came out in like 78, 79. Absolutely hated it. And I rewatched it 2 years ago. I thought maybe now I've changed, maybe I'll like the movie. I hated it even more.
Oh, wow.
Because I'm watching it and I'm like, oh my God, Robert De Niro's character is really fucked up. I mean, he is psychologically abusive, as well as physically abusive to Liza Minnelli.
Yeah.
And is completely oppressing her throughout the entire movie. And at the end, she manages to get out of that relationship, have her own successful life as a singer-artist, and he's able to go on and have his own nightclubs at the end. So they both end up on top, even though they're not together.
Yeah.
At no time is he ever called out on or brought down a peg for his treatment of her
Right.
in the film. So I'm like, this is bullshit. I'm like, I'm wondering what the original review said from the time of its release. So I go online, I look up the New York Times, I look up Village Voice, Roger Ebert, blah, blah, blah. Not one film mentions his behavior towards her. They all call him a quirky character. And I'm like, wow, is this telling
Yes.
of the changes that have happened since the late 1970s? I mean, in your face, if you were to watch it these days, you'd say, this is a movie about domestic violence.
We sure hope so.
And it's not. And it
Right.
wasn't read that way when it came out. In fact, they didn't even condemn the character's treatment of her.
Right.
And I'm looking at it going, fuck. In a way, we've come a long way in 35 years.
I
know?
hope that when we watch those films, we can recognize it, but I do
That's
have
just
that
it.
question myself.
Sure,
Yeah.
I think it still goes overlooked sometimes. A lot of the time, really. And
Yeah.
On a grand scale, it's like.
And
We're
like,
both going,
well, there's so much to talk about because these are
Yeah.
things that Darren and I talk about, and it's really helpful for us to talk about it in a classroom setting with someone outside of our relationship, because it gives me a more, we both know that I hate the word objective, but it's an easy word to use,
Yeah.
a somewhat more objective view of our relationship. And I hear what you say in Ruby Sparks actually in a very different kind of way than even the film itself is presenting. But what I hear is if I had the real opportunity to rewrite what another person does,
Yeah.
then would I do it?
Would you do it?
Would I do it? And that's the question for me, in my mind. And in some, the temptation is constantly there for me. Because, again, going back to Invasion of the Body Snatchers, we avoid all the pain of dealing with what's actually happening.
The human experience.
The human experience, and it is complex. There's no way. I mean, one thing that I love about Buddhism, and the hardest part of it for me, is its complexity. It's black and white, but it's also complex. It's all of that at the same time. So we can't forget the black and white, and we can't forget the complex. And people who are complex usually want to forget the black and white. People who are black and white usually want to forget the complex. And so it forces us to deal with all of it. We can't escape that discomfort, you know? And so I don't know, to me that's what I'm hearing when I hear the whole Ruby Sparks like summary or of what you're saying about that. So for me it is an ethical question, like, and one I wouldn't really be able to answer right now, even with or without seeing the film, but that's the question at hand. And it's really kind of goes back to the definition of what is love. What is love? And I don't think that we're really even allowed to ask that question. And because it is such an uncomfortable question, and also because the answers are already given to us, but they're all given really distortedly, you know? And I can't say that I have an example out there that I could say this is love, because so much of it is warped and distorted, and we see a certain aspect maybe of love in it, but we don't see really functioning, healthy relationships out there that are successful, and then that's taught to others.
It's very rare on the big screen
Yeah.
as well, as rare as it is in real life. It's the exception, not the rule, I think, certainly. Oh, there's plenty of, light romantic comedies where it has a happy ending and it all works out, but if only life was that simple, right?
Oh my
So, but
God.
to see genuine relationships presented on the screen,
You know, I mean,
I don't know.
I asked my kids
I look
recently.
for those, but what'd you ask them?
At the university, I said, what were the films when you were growing up? Because now, keep in mind, for the most part, they're all like fresh out of high school. So like 18, 19, 20,
Right.
usually around those ages. I said, what films, when you guys were growing up, were the ones that kind of taught you about, let's say, the facts of life, if nothing else, or, behavior with, I got titles like The Hangover,
Oh,
and
man.
I know, and 500 Days of Summer, and I'm like, which I think it was an Adam Sandler thing. I mean, it kind of went in and went right back out, and I think there's a trick element to it too, like she doesn't remember, it's almost like a groundhog
Oh, yeah, 50 First Dates.
Oh, that was 51st
Yeah,
Dates.
that's
Okay,
it,
yeah.
yeah.
But there's
Oh,
another
okay,
called.
yeah.
But I mean-
there's one of each of those.
I'm thinking The
Each of those
Hangover.
films, but The Hangover, yeah.
Can you
Oh,
imagine? That's
I
the
hate
film
that
taught
movie.
you
I'm
about
sorry.
life, you know?
It's a really, I watched it with my kids and I told them, I hate this movie, you guys. And they're
Yeah.
like, oh, it's funny, it's funny. I'm like, guys, I hate this movie because it really like laughs at, it assumes that is the way, like normal
People behave.
behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then people emulate it.
That's the scary
Yeah.
part.
You know?
That's the scary part.
Right.
They see it, they're like, oh, I'm going to be like Seth Rogen, and you know.
Well, and like
Yeah.
Getz, do you think Getz took a cue from
Death Wish?
I
Sure.
mean,
Well, yeah.
And, I'll have to tell you about this sometime. There's a film that I've been thinking of making, and I have ethical, well, should I tell him?
If you want
Why
to,
don't
you're
I-
on camera.
Yeah,
We
all
don't
right.
have to include it, but.
Yeah, okay. This is top secret because I have to surprise everyone with the ending particularly. But with all the mass shootings we have going on, I want to do a short film that starts with a couple of people looking at the headline of the newspaper. Oh, there was another mass shooting. Let's say it was on a college campus and 9 people were killed. And they're both like, oh, fuck. Okay, we've got to do this. We've talked about this. We knew this day would come. Here it is. You get the impression that they are people who protest shootings, and they are, in fact. They've made a life out of being gun control activists and whatnot. And you think they're getting ready to go do another march or something. Turns out they're getting ready to do a mass shooting of their own, but it's not revealed until the last shot of the movie that the room they're walking into to do this is in a hotel convention room, and it's an NRA meeting. And
Fight fire with fire.
yeah,
Give them a taste of
basically,
their own medicine.
or give them a wake-up call, as in, you people seem to be afraid of nothing. You need to be afraid because this has now become your problem, and it's going to continue to. And yeah, it's fight fire with fire, and the thing is, I would not advocate it. And Stephen King said once about one of his stories that he took a lot of flack for. He got hundreds of letters saying, he wrote about a situation of cruelty to a dog, and they all came down on him, and he's like, people, this is a story. It's not, and they vilified him because he wrote this story. And he's like, things like this happen all the time in real life. What I've done is write a story. But if I make this movie, first of all, everybody's going to say, oh my God, this guy is advocating gun violence. No. And then, what if it happens? That's kind of like...
Right.
I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet, frankly, but it's...
There's a film, and it has nothing to do with your story, so don't panic, don't worry. But I mean, I
Okay.
couldn't help but draw the parallels to it. It's called God Bless America, of all things, by Bobcat Goldthwait,
Oh, okay.
the comedian.
Yeah.
I really liked it. Again, somebody brought it into the ethics class. And it stars, and I think he's fucking brilliant, Bill Murray's brother, whose name I can never
Brian Doyle?
Yes. He's the star. He's wonderful. And he has this beautiful monologue at the beginning of the film where it's like, why he thinks everyone is an idiot. And, it's one of those things,
Yeah,
when
those
you
are
hear,
great.
you can't help but go, right on, you're
Yeah.
right, you're right.
Right.
But then it gets to the point where he's just like, I just want to kill, not the stupid people, but the people who are cruel. So, he sees a young man compete to get on, American Idol or whatever, and he can't sing for shit. And the judges are making fun of him on TV, so of course the judges are on his list, and all these
Right.
people, that
Yes.
are mean.
Yeah.
And he goes out and starts killing them, and he hooks up with a young girl who's also a sociopath. And she just wants to pretty much kill stupid people. So together they just go out on this like
Oh,
purging.
dear.
And he turns into his own worst enemy at the end.
Yeah.
He becomes a mean and hateful person just by his very action of killing. So it's weird, and the movie doesn't really work because I think a lot of people, they don't know where to go with it.
Right.
You're
Yeah.
kind of on his side, and,
Yeah, I kind of lost the track
Right.
somewhere, but...
yeah.
Right.
Yeesh. Yeah.
So it's kind of like the same quandary that you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
like, how do you do it without advocating the violence?
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know?
It does come down to our responsibility as artists, which is another theme we talk about a lot.
Yeah.
And it's
I
just
don't
more
know.
of a question than something that can be answered really quickly or easily.
Yeah, and it's something that, certainly something I'm asking myself, and I haven't started production or anything. But
Right.
I'm like trying to figure out, is there a way I can resolve that within myself before I go and make the film and put it out there, and then later go, damn, I shouldn't have done that. That was a terrible mistake. But then again, in the meantime, every several months, I open a newspaper and there it is again, and it's like, fuck, I should have made that film. Like I'm changing the world or something, but, and every little thing people do changes the world somehow. And
Yeah.
this, I have a feeling, would get more than a little attention. I actually think it would probably get a lot, which is scary, but...
Well,
Yeah, for me, I don't know, I always go like on the smaller scale, the NRA is always so big to say, guns don't kill people, people do.
right, yeah.
So the short film, or it could be the bigger film, the film I would love to see is the little boy or girl who goes into his parents' closet, finds the beautiful looking, intriguing box, takes it down, opens it up, plays with a fucking gun and blows their head off.
Right.
That's not a person killing themselves with a gun. That is a gun
That's
killing a person.
killing
Yeah, a good
genuinely
point.
innocent person, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, then the responsibility, and then it's, is it a matter of locking up the gun? I don't know,
Yeah.
some people are so fucking in love with guns.
I
don't
know,
understand
thank
it.
you.
I just
Disgusting.
don't
Right.
understand.
We all
They'll
agree.
defend it to the very
They
end.
will.
And-
It
and
doesn't
see,
matter
that's-
who's dying
They'll
along
say it's
the
the
way.
parents' fault for not locking it up.
Yeah,
If you're a
they're
proper,
bad gun owners.
gun owner.
They
or
shouldn't have
whatever.
had, well, right, then, let's have some gun control. My personal opinion, and I think Darren might agree with this, and maybe you do too, is get rid of the guns. We don't need them.
Absolutely.
We're killing each
In
other.
Europe, they're illegal.
Right
People can't
on.
own guns.
Right on.
If you're a hunter, fine, you get a hunting permit, and but you can't buy semi-automatic weaponry.
Right.
You can't buy a
It's insanity.
lifetime supply
Gone wild. I mean-
of ammunition. I mean, it's insane.
And I wanted to make a really almost crude joke about what Darren said about, I'm surprised it hasn't happened where these anti-gun activists haven't gone into an NRA meeting and shot a bunch of people. That's because we don't have very many pro-lifers who are anti-gun.
That's true.
It's a crude joke, but the pro-lifers will go in and kill. They don't have a problem killing the people that they disagree with. And the anti-gun activists, the anti-gun activists they draw a line, at least so far they have. They say, well, I can't go and use a gun against them even though I might want to.
Yeah, they won't,
But
because it's
it won't,
against their
it doesn't
principle.
make sense to
Yeah.
them in the end, So, it's, I'm from Wichita where the pro-choice, pro-life battle has played out for a couple decades, I guess, and where George Tiller was shot in the church, and I know so many people who totally defend that.
I guess they don't call it Bleeding Kansas for nothing.
Right, that's an appropriate name, yeah.
They do, huh?
Carrying
Yeah.
over from your Civil War days.
Yeah, they do call it that. Well, I'm gonna, thank you, Liam,
Yeah.
for, just for everything. I mean, you really, I've told you on our clips and write-ups and
You get
stuff we've
mentioned a
sent
lot.
to you. You are a common theme in our film when we talk. And so I'm trying to tag you or send you stuff as it goes up, which I can't always do, but I'm going to go back and eventually you'll have all of them sent to you personally,
And
where
I
we
did
personally
get-
mention you. Yeah, you
I did
got
get
one.
the lovely one that you sent me.
Okay,
I'm
good.
sorry.
Oh,
With the
I
intense
understand.
things have been crazy, but I'm hoping after this weekend.
Yeah.
That I can catch up
That
and
would
sit
be
down.
great.
We're always waiting
Am I
for
holding you
things
up?
to... No, are we holding you up?
No, but if I'm holding you up.
No,
I
I
thought you
just
meant
need
like
to
right
run
now.
to the restroom at some point. but-
Go, run.
Okay,
Go
are
run.
you
I'm
guys
just going to tell Darren how much I enjoyed his paper.
Yeah, wait,
okay.
about
Because he
that.
doesn't
Right.
believe- Do you
want me to
Are we
leave
sitting here
this
thinking
on?
about that?
Or
And
off?
you can leave it on.
Okay, cool. And I just wanted to say that you are important to us in ways that you really probably won't ever know. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Liam.
Thank you.
Yeah, so-
Hopefully
I'm
you'll
sorry
know.
for
Hopefully we'll get it across, all of it, and, you know.
Yeah.
I think
Over a
I
good-
know. I mean,
good
you
solid
blessed
idea.
me with your company, and that is, you know, telling me that there must be something open between us, you
Well,
know.
and can I give you my John Joe's paper too?
Oh,
Make a
yeah.
copy for
You didn't write
everybody.
one, did you?
Well, for Eric Schultz's class, I did.
Yeah.
Oh, you did? I would love to read
Okay,
it.
cool, I'll do that.
I would love to read it. In fact, tell you what, we won't say anything until you go to the bathroom, and then maybe we can go outside and have a smoke. Even.
That sounds
Cool.
perfect.
Did you guys talk?
Well, yeah. Well,
Yeah. Okay.
No, that's cool, because I have something to say before Liam says anything anyway. So.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, but, no, it's, I'll tell you later. We have no secrets.
There's a
Or
Carly
at least-
Simon
at
song.
least none that we know of. between
We
the two of us.
have no secrets.
Carly Simon? I like
Yes!
Carly Simon. You said Carly Simon, so
I did.
otherwise I don't think I would have known that, but I know a little Carly Simon. I just remember a friend of mine said if Bill Clinton had had any taste, he would have, say, hooked up with Carly Simon instead of an intern. And that at least would have, you know.
Wow, who said this?
An ex of mine. She was very disappointed with Clinton because he made such a poor choice in with whom to screw around.
Wow.
And she's like, he at least could have, you know, shown some taste and gone for somebody like, oh, I don't know, Carly Simon. And it was like, you're right. That would have been so much better for the whole nation. You
How
know?
cool is that?
Not that, God, I'm not sanctioning any of it. I thought that whole thing was such a bloody fiasco.
Oh.
And then everybody forgot. Like, everybody was, vote out the Republicans because they're doing this witch hunt. And then
Yeah.
they forgot by the time the elections came around.
Who cares about a peccadillo like that? I mean, who cares about it? Sure, you know. Do you know how much other crap goes on? I mean, who cares?
Okay, so here's my thing. Here's where
Yes.
I'm at now. Anyway, you gave me back this paper.
Yes.
I haven't looked at it. You've said some things to me when we were out in the hall now. Okay, where I'm at is I totally want to accept and I do appreciate what you've already said, and I love to hear kind, praiseful things about my stuff, and I will totally be prepared to do that. But I have a task that I have to attend first.
Okay.
That has to do with this paper.
If you want to
And
rewrite it,
something I want to
resubmit
present
it,
you.
I would love to read it, but you know, I really enjoyed, you know, for
Thank
one.
you.
I
Wait,
like-
enough said.
Okay.
Serious, yeah, I don't, I want to, I guess it's personal, it's a personal thing, and maybe it's much ado about nothing, but, because I don't usually get this way about things like this. In this case, I'm not satisfied with what I've done, and
Okay.
I want to make a sort of amend.
Well, I
And
want-
then I'll be like, so Liam, what'd you think of my paper?
Okay.
And it's basically this paper. It's the one you've read.
Well, you know, but I want to
it's-
tell you something in case you're worried about it. My relationship with you, my knowing you, perhaps deeper than other students, hanging out with you, having you in all my classes, has nothing to do at all with my appreciation of your paper.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that very much. In
That-
fact, that's great.
You got to know that right off the bat. If that paper had been written by anybody else, they would have gotten the same grade that you got on it.
Cool. And I believe you when you say that.
Yeah.
Actually, if that crossed my mind at all, it was just for a flash.
Good,
I don't
because
think it
that
did.
should not be in your,
Yeah.
you know, I do not let that influence. And by the same token, if you were to read what your classmates have written, you would see how high your paper ranks in comparison.
Well, thank you. I remember one of your only guidelines was please write in complete sentences if you can.
Yeah, but you not only wrote in complete sentences, you wrote in thought-provoking sentences, you wrote with beautiful prose. Darren, like I said, if you'd submitted this under a different name, it would have gotten the same grade.
Okay.
But I understand what you're
I guess-
saying, and if you've got
I
a
do
bar
understand
that
what
you
you're
have to
saying, and I
meet.
think it is a good paper. I'm not going to say that, oh, no, I turned in a bad paper. I turned in a good paper, really, really poorly executed, I think. And that's just in certain ways, and it's, And you're really very forgiving of students. You're generous and, you sort of afford us things that a lot of other instructors at the school don't.
Well, I think that comes with the subjectivity of art as well, you know?
Right.
But like, you turned me onto something
I just
that,
don't want to take that for granted, and I don't want to abuse that. I feel like that should be something that gets rewarded in you. And to me, the way this doesn't. How do I put it? It's. I can't find the right words now. It just it doesn't say thank you to the kindnesses that you
well,
share with us as your students, you know. And I want to do that.
well, you know, I think you did. You enlightened me to something that I'd never put together, and I thought it was brilliant, and I think you may have credited your wife with it.
Yeah.
But that was when you pointed out the hypocrisy of the priest by not being able to reconcile his faith with desire. I missed that completely. I thought that was absolutely brilliant.
That was this is something.
And you gave credit to your wife.
Well-
So, you know, I mean, but still, it was brilliant.
I thought it was because I hadn't really seen it, but we
And-
did
but
talk
what was
about this
funny
movie at length.
was when he said, "Here, I'm writing about this. Will you read it and make sure it's okay?" And I read it, and I'm like, "Wow, oh, really? Yeah, I say go for it." But I wasn't sure I even remembered making that observation. I said, "Really?" But he
Yeah.
remembered
I
it. in
loved
there.
it.
Yeah.
I
So,
loved it.
well, he recognized it sometimes what's interesting about life is you can say something and then you go back and you don't really realize what you said or what you
Or
don't
its
really
importance.
understand the depths of it.
Yeah.
When you acknowledge it, you may see it on the surface, but when it kind of bounced back at me is when I started going, well, I don't know if I understand the profundity of that, but you do. You understood it enough to include it in the paper.
Well, yeah. to
So
me
it
was
is
like
yours too,
totally
is my
important.
point.
Right.
At that point, when you take it in and you incorporate it into your own thinking, then it becomes your own idea, you know?
And it is, and I want to see the movie again and see if I even still believe some of the stuff I wrote in that paper. I think I will, but it's been enlightening being able to see it with Jody and talk to her about it. So,
And vice versa.
speaking of writing, I was sitting here like struggling for the right words to talk to you right now, and sometimes I just trip out on this stuff, like using the right words. So,
Right.
I'm gonna write a tiny introduction. Damn it! All my surprises, I'm giving them all away.
Don't give them away then.
Yeah, I guess you sort of gathered that what I want to do, it's not really a rewrite, it's more of a cleanup job.
Sure.
Just because it feels right. And then, with my little introduction, I could cleanse my whole palette of whatever it is that's been bothering me. And I'll find the right words.
Okay.
And then...
Well, one thing that this brings up between me and Darren is I'm like the stickler about certain things, and I can't always do it. But one of the things, I've been going to school forever. This is going to be my 4th degree.
Wow.
My 4th degree. I've made a profession out of being a student, you know?
I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, I would love to make a profession, at least in part, about being a teacher, you know? Because
But you've taught.
I have taught, but I thrive in the academic environment.
I know I could die here. I mean, I would love that to be the case.
Yeah, but not anytime soon.
Well, whatever. Shall we go and
okay.
smoke? Jody, will you
Oh,
join
let's
us?
do. Yeah.
I was just thinking, we're going to be, we might be in this room. I was going to say,
Yeah.
great outdoors.
One of the things we talk about, and I don't want to step on Darren's toes, because there are things that we talk about that may not be appropriate for me to talk about to other people, but I'll put it just in these simple terms, and that is, I'm like, whenever I say, I don't, we talked about why I'm like this. Whenever I say, oh, I'm signing up for a class, then that means I'm going to ace everything. I'm going to do everything. I'm going to be there on time. I'm going to be there all the time. And, exactly. And so, but part of that's difficult is we're both perfectionists, and sometimes you just gotta do it, you know. And it's how do we strike that balance between getting it done and getting it done at the top-notch level every single time. And it's impossible to do it every single time. You can't do it every single time, I don't think, from my long experience as a student. Sometimes I just say, I'm going to do it and get it done, because it's better that I do that than not do it by over-stressing myself to the point that I'm crippled and can't get anything done.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, what do you think? I mean, that might be part of the question that Darren is struggling with in all this
That's always
stuff.
stopped me in the past. Too.
Has it?
Such a perfectionist. If it's not, 100%, I'm not going to put it out, and then it can
Yeah.
kill you in the long run. At times you've got to walk away from things.
Oh, right.
It's funny,
It's good enough.
this paper, okay, yeah, I want to touch up the paper, but this paper is like going to, I said a small introduction, but in my head I'm already like, oh no, this paper is going to come with another paper.
And he doesn't have time to read it.
None of this is for a grade at this point. You told me the grade, and it's like, don't get me wrong, an A+, sure, I love it, but I have to feel personally like I deserve it. And
All right. Well, maybe every year at the same time, get a new paper on hypocrites.
Yeah.
It'll keep growing every year. New insight will come.
Yeah.
20 years from now, you'll have this huge analysis of.
Right
you do
on.
grade differently than other teachers. You're not going to hand somebody back a paper with red ink all over it and things underlined and circled and criticisms all throughout, which is nice, really. But I don't want to take that as a license to turn in something that any other teacher certainly would do that and would be right to do it.
I think
I'm not saying you're wrong, but I'm saying that,
I think you'd be
right
pleasantly
to do it.
surprised. I mean, I even got your typos, which I think were all of like 4. I mean, come on, what is that?
Oh, no. You're
I had typos too, and I hate it.
Maybe
God's sake.
maybe this is a case of maybe I'm too much of a perfectionist, but I'll tell you the truth about that paper. I didn't read it a second time before I turned it in, and then I
It's all right.
glanced at the
I
first
could kind of
page.
tell that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But your
you gathered
passion
that.
flowed throughout.
Cool.
It was like you were on a jag, you sat down, you were giving me these great insights into film that I had never seen before, and it was filled with your passion. What more can I ask for?
Well, one thing I tell Darren and makes me jealous of him, we have envy toward one another in certain ways, is that I go to school, I'm there before the class starts, not always, as you know, and after class is over, and I work really hard, and I'm, totally devoted no matter what's happening outside in my life, which is always chaos. And he shows up, and he gets
got to write a paper.
yeah, and he gets he steals the show, and my son is really brilliant, and he doesn't get the high grades that he deserves because he doesn't want to do the work.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, if somebody can do half the work and get the grades that I get, then why aren't they? And I don't know if that's really fair to direct toward you at this, in this instant or anything like that. But I mean, it's a real compliment. It says that, you have all these skills and natural talents and abilities going in.
You're a great writer, Darren.
He's a great writer, a great.
Among the better ones I've read in my 10 years out here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good compliment. I would
Yeah.
say thank you and accept
Yes.
that.
No, I mean, they are logical.
Yeah.
You give me your thesis statement, you follow it out, you give me examples, you support it, and it's beautifully written.
Yeah.
Wow.
And interesting
I
and
can count the
intriguing.
number of papers I've received in 10 years like that.
Oh, that's a lot.
Thank
That's
you.
so easy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Getting a paper like that is a pleasure for me. It's like, holy shit, I'm enjoying this.
I
Right.
know that I'm sure
Yeah.
we both appreciate that you actually take the time to read them. We've had the experience of
Working
teachers,
hard.
I won't name names or anything, that you can tell that they turned it in, okay, they get the grade based on the fact that they turned it in, and if you get feedback, it's usually because, you know, you went and asked after it. And
Well, I always feel guilty because I don't write voluminous notes,
Yeah.
you know, and
But you read them.
I do read them, and I'm always up for, if people want to come and talk about the papers, I'm always up for that. I just
Yeah.
don't get carried away because there's so many people.
You have to,
It's the only, you know.
the same reason you have to like quit at some point. You could totally devote your life to grading these papers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you
and
gotta-
spend more time on it than the students did writing it.
That's the
Yeah.
irony sometimes,
Right.
you know, you're like,
Yeah,
you gotta.
yeah.
This is a different arena, sort of, because you've taken the approach that really there's no wrong answers. This isn't a true or false thing. This isn't a, it's not math.